Hi, and welcome to Inclusion Fusion 2012. We're thrilled to have you join us. My name is Harmony Hensley, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Ministry Advancement for Key Ministry. Today, we're going to take a few minutes and talk about Free Respite. Free Respite is an initiative we have at Key Ministry whereby we are mobilizing a movement of Christ-honoring churches to reach out and serve families affected by disability through respite outreach. Respite is the number one identified need of these families, and we realize that if we are to be missional, we want to make sure that their basic needs are met first. So in order for us to have greater audience with these families and have the opportunity to talk to them about who Jesus is, we first want to make sure that they're getting their much needed break. Now, as you start to plan a respite, there are a number of things you'll want to consider as a church. As a result, we've developed a fabulous resource on our new Key Ministry website. If you visit www.keyministry.org, you'll notice at the top there's a menu option for resources. Click on that option and then you'll see a resource kit. You'll be prompted to create a username and password, and then you'll have access to over 180 free downloads, many of which are in a section called Free Respite. Now, within that, there are a number of breakdowns because we understand that often you're going to be working in a volunteer team where you're going to need to dole out responsibilities. And the section we're going to talk about today has to do with safety for your teams, for your church, and for your ministry, and a positive, inclusive, welcoming ministry environment. First, let's take a minute and talk about safety. We understand there are a lot of fears for many church leaders as they think about reaching out to this population. The elephant in the room is that they're afraid that a child's going to come into your church, they're not going to be able to communicate, they're going to have a life-threatening disability or medical issue, and they're going to have a horrible time. Well, we want to talk about why that's probably not true and likely isn't going to happen, and in the event that you do have an emergency, how to be best prepared. First and foremost, we want to make sure that you've staffed for safety. Make sure that all of your volunteers over the age of 18 have had a background check. Now, we understand that can be a costly thing for a church to undertake. Some churches pay as much as $25 to $75 per person, depending on the service that you use. We've had great success partnering with protectmyministry.org. Their background checks generally fall around $9 to $10. And even if you don't have that ministry money in your budget, we have worked with many churches who have mobilized their own volunteers to cover that cost themselves. The way we explain it is that on a Friday night, they could spend $10 to $15 for a movie ticket that they're going to see once, or they could make a $10 to $15 investment to get them front row tickets to the kingdom. When you have that option, of course they're going to want to pay for their background check. Once they've had their background check, make sure that you have a thorough system at your church to monitor who's had them and when, so that after a year you can renew them. I'm sure most churches have some sort of policy, so just work with ministry leaders and staff appropriately. We also want to make sure that if you're having minors to serve, that you've done a good job of vetting them for the position they're serving in. We've had great success partnering with youth ministries across the country to mobilize students to be exceptional buddies for this ministry. In doing so, you want to make sure that it's a right fit. So talk with the student, their parent perhaps, and other ministry leaders who often work with the youth in your church to get a great insight as to where would be a good fit for them. We also want to look at toileting and diapering. It's something that always comes up and no one wants to talk about it. It's diapering and toileting. How fun is that? But the reality is it will come up. So you want to make sure that you have a great stash of materials in place. Now, most families, if this is an issue, they come with a diaper bag or proper items to have with them. But we all know accidents happen. So make sure you create an extra kit. This kit could be utilized by your medical team, as they're usually the ones who will help volunteers with any kind of diapering or changing that needs to take place. We recommend getting a yoga mat, some gloves so that everyone can be sanitary. Don't use latex, as there are often allergies. And then you'll want to have wipes, perhaps a pillow in case it's an older child so that they can be comfortable, and a place designated where they can have proper dignity and privacy when doing so. Also look at your policies. If you're going to offer diapering for young children, you have to make sure that you're consistent in extending that for other children as well. Now, your events are usually only 3 to 4 hours, so it's often not as big of an issue as you think, but be prepared. Also, it's wise to have a few extra sets of clothing because sometimes there are kids who don't typically need help with that sort of things, and maybe they get a little bit stressed out, or they're so excited and engaged in some activity and there might be an accident, and we don't want them to have to go home early. So having an extra set of sweatpants, some one-size-fits-all type garments that you keep in a place that your medical team is aware of can help them make sure that they get to stay engaged in the party for the evening. We also want to talk about what we refer to as ministry in the light, meaning that at no time will you ever let any of your volunteer staff be alone in a room with a child. This is important in any ministry environment, and even more so in a respite environment where often you're serving families who don't typically interact with the church. Make sure that one-on-one buddies understand that if a child needs to use the restroom, they're to find another set of buddy and child to go with them, or to find an extra, maybe a medical team volunteer or an activities leader who's not busy to go with them. They should make sure that they're never ever put in a position where they could be questioned, because we want to protect them and the children we're serving. So just be sure that everyone's always ministering in the light. We also understand that there are often behaviors that can be very scary or intimidating to volunteers who have not typically served this population. We have a lot of great resources on our team and on our website to help you learn more about how you can help correct behaviors and prevent them from happening. One of the many things we talk about is your ministry environment. Ministry environments often will set the tone for the behavior you can expect. Consider this. Have you ever been to an amusement park? I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we have Kings Island there. Maybe you've heard of it. It's amazing, but it is incredibly overstimulating. When you go to Kings Island, you lose complete track of time, which is what they want, because they want you to stay there for a long time. You will also notice that the kids are typically bouncing off the walls because they have access to lots of sugary foods. There's lots of engaging and exciting stuff going on, and they're often just running around like crazy. Sometimes in children's ministry areas, we unfortunately overcorrect a bit much because we so desperately want kids to come and have an awesome experience connecting with the ministry and learning more about who Jesus is. We create that sort of amusement park environment, and then we scratch our heads when we find that we have kids that are running around all over the place and that we have a hard time containing things. We actually did a video module for Inclusion Fusion 2011 where we really broke down a lot of helpful hints for how to make your ministry environment more welcoming. So if you visit our resource kit on keyministry.org, you'll find that there's a section called Inclusion Fusion Library. In that, last year, I gave a whole presentation on ministry environments. This is great information that's appropriate not only for your free respite environment, but for your Sunday morning environment as well. So I encourage you to check that out. And if you have any questions or you have a tricky spot in your space that you're not quite sure how to make more inclusive, please don't hesitate to contact us. We live for your questions, because that's how our ministry is better, because your question might be something that connects with another ministry leader across the country who never thought to ask. So please don't hesitate to continue the dialogue with us. We hope this has been helpful, and we look forward to connecting with you. But in the meantime, log on, check out the Free Respite Manual, and if you think this is a ministry you'd like to have your church engaged in, please contact us. We'd love to serve you to make sure that we find a church for every child.